We have seen, some increase in value, speaking of the Nigerian naira. And most Nigerians, or one thing that I should say that is on the minds of most Nigerians is, how is the naira valuing? And, the price of basic commodities has not dropped recently. Well, my guest is here with me, and hopefully he answers that question. I have Dr. Samson Simon, who is an economic analyst. Thank you, Doctor, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Chiamaka.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nigerians.
I think it's just fair we start off by even answering that question. How do you interpret the disconnect, between the strengthening of the naira and the persistence of high prices? Is there, an underlying economic dynamic to all of that?
Of course, there is. I know that when the value of the naira fell precipitously, over time, it went officially from around 460 naira to the dollar when the current president came on board to around 1,007, and then on the parallel market to almost 2,000, around 1,009. And then prices climbed like crazy, and Nigerians were attributing everything to Forex. And now that the prices, the value of the naira is appreciating, people are expecting, all right, so prices should crash. I'm sorry to disappoint you, like the market has disappointed you. It's not as easy as most of us think, because when the value of the naira falls, what happens is that businesses take advantage of that. Let's say I have a stock of products that I bought, and then the naira falls in value. People see it as an opportunity for a windfall. They quickly increase they quickly jack up prices, and they make a lot of money. They cash in because of that. Unfortunately for them, when the value of the naira falls, when the value of the naira improves, when it strengthens or it appreciates, they have old stock, and they cannot just crash the prices. They'll be losing money, so nobody wants to lose money. So this will take a while to work off. The old stock has to finish. When that finishes, maybe some people say within a month, too. Some people say it may even take longer. And of course, these fluctuations in the value of the naira also distort the market. So we may not go back to where we were before all these fluctuations. And then another thing is that there is a lack. Prices are downward sticky. It's easier for you to increase prices than for you to bring such prices down, including wages. So it's an economic term, and it's not limited to Nigeria, because some people think that it's a Nigerian thing. It's not limited to Nigeria. It's a global economic issue.
I was going to go there because, when conversations like this are held, people say, why do these things happen in Nigeria? But good to know it's not just, limited to Nigeria. It's a global thing. But I would like to hear from you, from your own point of view, what would you say, are the factors that are driving the rapid appreciation of the naira? We obviously have seen, some measures come from the CBN and all of that. But we would like for you to explain in layman terms, what are the factors driving the appreciation of the naira?
Well, there are demand and supply factors. There was a lot of demand on the naira that sadly we couldn't meet up. And then we had supply shortages, right? Paucity of FX in the market. So these two problems have largely been tackled by the monetary authorities, talking about the central bank. Like we had backlog of FX, some forwards that were not cleared, and that reduced confidence. The central bank has cleared that. I know some people say normally say that there is around 2 billion that has not been cleared. The central bank audit said that those ones are a bit questionable, unless if those people can prove otherwise. And if anybody has anything that contradicts what the audit is saying, please feel free to share with us. Then another thing is that the supply has actually gone up because of the hike in interest rates. 2 hikes actually, 400 basis points, which had never happened before. Then shortly after, 200 basis points. That has attracted portfolio investors, particularly foreign portfolio investors, because the yield of our treasury bills and our OMO bills have gone up, and so many people came in, and there was an increase in the inflows of FX. So another thing is that the central bank has embarked on other policies. One of them is that foreign dollar-denominated collaterals for naira loans have been stopped. And then another thing is that the margin around gains for international money transfer operators, the center initially it was the range was between -2.5 and then +2.5. The central bank has removed that. So there are so many factors that have actually made the confidence in the naira to be restored, and then the supply to go up, and then the demand on it to come down. So these factors have contributed to making the naira to appreciate in value. Then talking about the sustainability of this, I think the jury is still out. Though according to Goldman Sachs that Nigeria has actually turned the corner, the Economist there believe so. But some of us believe that this is just buying time. We need to fix fundamental things around the economy. One of them being the problem of oil theft, because the main supply of FX in Nigeria has been export of crude oil and gas. So that has not largely been tackled. In fact, in the last 2 months, the output has actually reduced. So we need to do something serious about that. Then in the long term, we need to encourage general exports, particularly exports around MSMEs. So we need to do something serious about that. And we can also attract a lot of diaspora remittances into Nigeria. So these things will largely solve the problem. But for now, I think we're largely buying time.
Indeed. Doctor, you touched a bit on sustainability. That has been, a conversation that most economic watchers and analysts always bring up. So my question now is, are there some key indicators that Nigerians, should monitor, to assess how sustainable this will be in the short, medium, and long term?
Well, we have to keep attracting FX in any way we can. And normally, these FX come either through exporting commodities, mainly crude oil. Another thing is diaspora remittances. Another thing is investments, either foreign direct investments, foreign portfolio investments, or even other types of investment. Sadly, foreign direct investment has largely dried up. And it's because people don't have confidence. They're afraid. That backlog contributed because people were afraid that if they bring in their money, they'll find it difficult to repatriate. But now that the central bank has cleared the backlog, I think some people are beginning to have some confidence now that things will begin to look up. But it remains to be seen if the FDIs will be attracted, and then to what extent, whether it will be enough to move the needle for the value of the naira.
Okay. Also, you did touch, on the actions we've seen so far come from the monetary authorities. And one of those that we've seen recently is like you stated, lowering the LDR by the CBN to about 50%. That is the LDR to banks. How do you anticipate this adjustment to affect the banking sector moving forward?
Well, normally, when you increase your cash reserve ratio, CRR, when you increase it rather, you reduce the LDR, loan to deposit ratio, by the same proportion. But the last time that we increased our CRR, we did not reduce the LDR. And I think the central bank has just done that. And the reason for doing that, because we're still tackling inflation. The mandate of the monetary authorities is around price stability. So price stability is the overarching goal of the monetary authority. And all of us have witnessed it. Prices are still climbing. I know if you look at the numbers, they're actually accelerating in a decelerating rate, because if you look at headline inflation between January and February, it ticked up by 1.8, but between February and March, the uptick was 1.5. So it's actually increasing at a decreasing rate. I know it's not enough, it's still marginal, and people may say, all right, we're not seeing the impact because prices are still up there. But if you look at it, some prices are actually coming down. Starting with diesel, some people say they don't go to factor, but the international price of the naira also affects that, because those people using diesel, the market has always cite how much will it cost them to import? Why should they buy Dangote if it's more expensive? So appreciation of the naira has actually impacted that. And if you look at some food items too, I know it's not a general crash in the prices, but some items are coming down. Noodles, for example, even rice has come down a little bit. So I believe over time, we need some time because of the lack to actually see maximum impact.
When you say time, I'd just like for you to give us, an estimate. I know, it's not it's not cast on stone, I should say, but looking with the eyes of someone who has, monitored the Nigerian economy for a while now, what amount of time should Nigerians look out for?
Well, inflation will likely climb until the middle of this year. So after that, and middle of this year, maybe in like 2-3 months, we should begin to see a lot of deceleration. The central bank is projecting 21.4, but it's very unlikely for us to have 21.4 this year.
That's
but
over 15%.
You said?
That is over 15% in moderation. What the CBN is projecting.
Yes, but it is very unlikely, unless if there is some sort of miracle. But looking at the numbers, it's very unlikely for us to arrive at 21.4 rather. But prices will come down starting from the middle of the year if the current parameters continue.
Okay, you have talked about the issues or the policies now, the actions we've seen from the monetary authorities, but not so much is being said with regards to the fiscal side. So I want for us to speak to actions that the fiscal authorities as well should come up with to complement what we have seen from the monetary side moving forward towards gaining, reducing inflation, price stability, and all of that.
Well, that has been a problem for a while, even from the last president, when the central bank became too powerful. It's because the fiscal authorities failed to play their own role to a large extent. It's not like they were not doing anything, but not as much as it was required or expected. Sadly, the current fiscal authorities are largely not too different from the last ones, in the sense that all we have seen so far are basically around monetary policy. We have hardly seen fiscal policy playing a big role, but there's a lot of room for them to play a big role. Like we're talking about inflation now. There are certain things, mainly around food inflation is a major problem, because if you look at our core inflation, when you subtract food inflation, it's 20-something%. Food inflation is 40-something%. That's the highest it has ever been. That's not within the remit of the central bank. That's the job of the fiscal authorities, and they need to up their game. They need to do a lot of things. We have a lot of arable land, but our productivity, our yield is so poor. So that's a responsibility for the government to do something about it. And the major problem for this food issue is insecurity. I'm sorry to say that I don't think the government is doing anything serious about insecurity. They need to tackle that problem. If we tackle that problem, I think that will go a long way in helping farmers to go back to their farms, and then they can farm, and then we may go back to where we were before this problem started.
Well, at the top of my head now, and I just, remembered the number of interventions we have seen so far. Isn't that, some sort of action from the fiscal authorities? I know we had agreed that we haven't seen much, but then again, we have seen interventions. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, we have seen, but those interventions are merely drop in the ocean. We need to do something serious, something that will actually move the needle. I'm sorry to say I've not seen a single thing that shows that the fiscal authority is willing to move the needle. I think, with all due respect to Mr. Wale Odun, I think he needs to do a lot of things, and even to the president, because it's not just about the Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister for the Economy alone. They need to do something, and something remarkable, for us to actually see changes within the economy. Okay,
in a minute before we go, two recommendations to fiscal authorities, towards having a synergy now with the monetary authorities as well. So what would those recommendations be?
The monetary authorities on their own are limited. They can only go as far. So it's very important for the fiscal authorities to meet the monetary authorities midway. And one of the things they can do, I believe, is mainly around insecurity, which is not directly within the remit of the Minister of Finance, but of course the government. They need to tackle insecurity around oil production, around attracting investments into the oil industry. Another thing, like I mentioned, is agriculture. There's something that needs to be done. We need to mechanize, because our mechanization, horsepower per hectare, is abysmally low. So there is a lot of need for mechanization. I know Niger State is trying to do something. I think the federal government can take a leaf out of the book of the Niger State government. So I think these two things will go a long way around food and around other parts of inflation as well.
Well said there. I have been speaking with Dr. Samson Simon, who is an economic analyst, and he's been speaking to, how we have constantly seen rise in inflation despite the appreciation of the naira, and what not just the fiscal authorities now, but also how we can have a synergy between the fiscal and monetary sides of government. Thank you, Doctor, for all the insights this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, this is where we say our goodbyes on today's edition of the program, but join the conversation and let us hear your thoughts on social media. What are your thoughts on the rise, or the stability, I should say, the constant, rise in the cost of basic commodities despite the appreciation of the naira? Let us hear your thoughts on this topic. Well, my name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.